You know the saying, think before you speak? Well, when you have thousands or even millions of eyes on you, that saying should be engraved into your brain. But of course, that isn't possible, so many celebrities have slipped up and said the wrong thing, causing huge controversy or even further showing their true colors. Yep, today we are going to be discussing our top 10 celebrities who destroyed their careers on talk shows. I'm your host Melanie with InformOverload, and before we begin, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And for our number 10, we of course have Ellen DeGeneres. She was once known as someone who always spreads kindness, and in one of Nicki Minaj's songs No Frauds, she even rapped, "I am the generous queen, ask Miss Ellen," as everyone knew her for giving away gifts to her fans and surprising them with their favorite celebrities. Well, during the whole controversy she faced in 2020, many dug up past interview moments that should have been red flags. In one interview with Dakota Johnson, Ellen is seen caught in a lie after Dakota calls her out. Ellen basically calls out the actress for not inviting her to her Christmas party, and I'm sure Ellen didn't expect Dakota to call out what she said. Actually, no, that's not the truth, Ellen, is what she said, before adding how Ellen made it a big deal the previous year about being invited, so Dakota ensured she would receive the invite that year. She also added how she didn't even know Ellen liked her, and she is seen facing the audience and saying, "Gosh, this isn't going well." And in an interview Ellen did with Mariah Carey back in 2008, there were rumors circulating whether the singer was pregnant or not. So Ellen took it too far and offered her a glass of champagne, which she basically pressured her into drinking if she wasn't pregnant, and if she denied it, this would prove Ellen's pregnancy suspicion. And because Mariah was indeed pregnant, she took a fake sip before Ellen yelled, "You're pregnant." And weeks after this incident, Mariah unfortunately had a miscarriage, and in 2020 she reflected on this interview and stated, "I was extremely uncomfortable with that moment is all I can say, and I really have a hard time grappling with the aftermath," before adding how at the time she didn't tell anyone because she had suffered from a miscarriage in the past and wasn't ready. She said she didn't enjoy that moment, but also didn't know what to do in that situation. For our number 9, we have Kris Jenner. You probably know her for being the momager for her Kardashian and Jenner family, and not for her short-lived talk show. You would assume someone as well known as Kris Jenner would easily accumulate views for her own talk show, right? Her show was called Kris, and the first episode was released in July 2013, with the last episode airing just a month later. Before the show was launched, Kris always said how this was a dream come true for her and had multiple famous co-hosts like her daughter Chloe and Ryan Seacrest. The show didn't even pick up for a full season after just 10 episodes were aired. Frank Sicha, who is the senior VP and president of programming for the Fox television station, said in a 2014 interview with Hollywood Reporter that Kris was, in his words, pretty uninteresting on camera. Although he admitted the ratings were not a disaster, it wasn't a show that made sense for the network. Her IMDb rating for the talk show is sitting at a 1.3 out of 10, with many criticizing how everything Kris said would just circulate back to the family, even though some segments were completely unrelated to the Kardashians, such as belly dancing and Twinkies. New York Post critic Linda Stassi also shared on Twitter, writing, "Does this bribe make me look fat? Kris Jenner just sent me a Tiffany pen with which to write her a better review next time. Shockingly wrong." I was curious and checked the pen prices, and they start from 115 Canadian dollars all the way up to 2,000. For our number 8, we have Wendy Williams. The Wendy Williams show ran between 2008 all the way up to 2022. And although the show ran for over a decade, it wasn't all rainbows and sunshines, as Wendy was quite controversial with what she had to say, as many turned her into a meme. A few of her scandals included body shaming Ariana Grande back in 2015, as Wendy said, "She's 21. She'll forever look 12, and I don't mean that in a good way. It's nice to look younger than you are, but when you look too young and then you're short, she's like only 4'11". I don't look at her as a woman." And a year later in 2016, she insinuated Caitlyn Jenner isn't a woman by saying, "Caitlyn still has a member, so that is not, I mean, until you don't, aren't you caught in a limbo?" What she asked producers while on stage. And in 2019, she dragged Meghan Markle after she opened up about her struggles while being married to Prince Harry and the royal life. Wendy said, "You knew exactly what you were doing. Please don't try to garner sympathy from us. Nobody feels sorry for you. You know what you signed yourself up for, girl." Plus, in 2020, she shocked audience members when she insulted men in the audience for simply clapping when she spoke about Valentine's Day, which, if you didn't know, is when friendships between women are celebrated. She said, "If you're a man and you're clapping, you're not even a part of this," before adding she didn't care if the men in her audience were a part of the LGBTQ+ community because, in her words, "Stop wearing wearing our skirts and our heels. You will never be the woman we are. Wendy has just always stirred up controversy, as there are way more times she was problematic. But we can't forget about the time she made insensitive comments about the TikTok star who went by Swavey, who passed away at just 19 during a shooting. Wendy said, "I have no idea who this is, nor does one person in this building," and she even compared Swavey's follower count to her own. His mother actually responded to what Wendy had to say. Chanel Clark, who is the mother, shared with CBC News, quote, "Like, as a mother, Wendy Williams, how dare you be so disrespectful? I used to watch you as a child, and even though you have a gossip show and all that, you didn't even know my son." And for number 7, we have Dr. Phil. His name alone sparks controversy, as he is no longer technically a doctor, as he stopped renewing his license to practice psychology in 2006, and also never held a California license where his show was filmed. He is also called out pretty often for exploiting his vulnerable guests for profit and views. Some of his most controversial episodes included one he did with former actress Shelley Duvall, who was known for her role in The Shining. Well, in 2002, she retired from acting and completely disappeared from the spotlight, and fans and journalists had troubles tracking her down until 2016, when she was back on screen, but this time on an episode of Dr. Phil. Even in the show's promo for this episode, it was clear she was battling many mental health issues, as she insisted her Popeyes cast Robin Williams, who passed away in 2014, was still alive as a shapeshifter, and other claims she believed in. In one point of the episode, she directly looked at Dr. Phil and said, "I'm very sick. I need help." Although Dr. Phil claimed the best specialist would help her treat her physical and mental illness, he revealed how she left the treatment center just after 3 days, as he said, quote, "Shelley still refused to take any medications, and she would not sign the paperwork required to treat her." Actress Mia Farrow also spoke publicly about this issue on Twitter, as she tweeted, "There should be laws to protect mentally ill people from TV talk shows like Dr. Phil, who is exploiting Shelley Duvall for his own gain." Vivian Kurbig, who is the daughter of The Shining director Stanley, said this episode was exploitive and shameful, while posting a whole note onto Twitter. In 2012, Shelley shared with The Hollywood Reporter she actually regretted being on the show and admitted she agreed to the interview without her partner Dan's knowledge, and revealed Dr. Phil hounded her mom with phone calls after the episode aired in order to get more comments. She told them she found out the kind of person he was the hard way. This was one of the most controversial episodes, with Danielle Bergoli, who is known as the Catch Me Outside girl, and her claims about Dr. Phil and the ranch being another person who spoke poorly about Dr. Phil and their time on their show. And for number 6, we have Jada Pinkett Smith. Just when you thought you escaped her, I'm here to bring her back again, unfortunately. She hosted the Red Table Talk, which was her Facebook talk show, along with her mother Adrian and daughter Willow. In one instance, Willow told her mom in 2018 that her introduction to the birds and the bees was when she walked in on her and Will. And in 2020, after rapper August Alsina made claims about his entanglement with Jada, Will joined Jada on her show, where they revealed they'd been separated before she had a relationship with him that didn't just last a few weeks or months, but actually 2 years, from 2017 to 2019. This episode was heavily criticized, as it showed Will in a very vulnerable state, visibly emotional, and many argued she isn't being transparent, but rather exploitive, as many believe she uses her husband for publicity. And in this year, just before her memoir titled Worthy was set to be released, she revealed that her and Will have actually been separated since 2016, which shocked many and led the public to believe she was just sharing every detail of her life to drive up book sales. And for our number 5, we have Tyra Banks. Of course, she is known for her successful career in modeling and even TV, as she was the host for America's Next Top Model and even in the movie Life Size alongside Lindsay Lohan. Body image was a recurring theme on her Tyra Banks show, which ran for 5 seasons between 2005 and 2010. In one episode, she had a group of women dressed in a tan spandex bodysuit where they were to judge their appearances. In another episode, Tyra was wearing a fat suit, and her reasoning was, in her words, "Live that life for a day and see what happens." But apart from body image, she also has a controversial episode with Robert Pattinson and Taylor Lautner, who of course starred in the movie franchise Twilight, and she asked Robert to bite her before any questions were even asked. Many don't even call this an interview, as it was just so awkward and quite odd, but possibly not as odd as the time she decided to have the wildest intro ever, as she told her audience she was bitten by a dog during her morning jog and had to get a rabies needle, before starting to foam out of her mouth on stage and bark bark at the audience and cameras. The audience appeared to laugh uncomfortably, and it's pretty self-explanatory. In our number 4 spot, we have Dr. Oz. Just like the other so-called doctor on this list, Dr. Oz is criticized for his many scandals, although he actually deserves the doctor on his name, as he was a cardiothoracic surgeon, and after appearing on Oprah's show in 2004, he landed his own daytime talk show. He quickly gained viewership after teaching the public many health terms and different health tips. However, before his show even started, there were already doubts from the medical community about his approach to the profession. In 2003, there were reports of animal cruelty allegations at Columbia University, where he was the professor of surgery. People spoke to veterinarian Catherine Delarado, who said within weeks of her starting at the research lab in 2001, she was horrified to have witnessed the inhumane treatment of dogs in experiments, which included leaving the dogs in pain and paralyzed for weeks with no research benefit before unfortunately passing. Although she didn't directly see Oz doing these experiments, the investigator claims he has the overall responsibility in the lab. And as his career went on, many believed he became more of an entertainer, as many of what he discussed had no evidence. He also had many controversial weight loss supplements that went under investigation after he endorsed these products. In our 3rd spot, we have David Letterman. He was a very popular talk show host who has been called out for his behaviors toward his guests. In 2013, Lindsay Lohan appeared to promote Scary Movie 5, but instead of focusing on the movie's release, he wanted to shift the topic onto something else, as he began to ask her invasive questions about whether she steals things and manages her money responsibly, as well as her plans to check back into a specific facility. Lindsay told the audience that they did not discuss this during the pre-interview and asked David to stay on the positive, and it was pretty clear she was uncomfortable and even told him her healing process is not a joking matter. He also continued to ask Janet Jackson about her incident at the 2004 Super Bowl halftime show, even though she told him she didn't want to relive any of that, and added there were more important things to focus on in this world. In another interview with Jennifer Aniston, he paused the conversation and said, "Forgive me if this is rude, I just want to try one thing," before going behind the actress, placing his hand on her shoulder, putting a piece of her hair in his mouth. Gwen Stefani has also had poor experiences, as he kept talking about her body. In our number 2 spot, we have The Jenny Jones Show. They often did a segment where guests were encouraged to reveal their deepest secrets, which usually caused no issues. However, one episode would completely turn things upside down after a guest, Scott Amador, appeared on the show and revealed he had a crush on his neighbor Jonathan Schmitz. And on the episode, Jonathan didn't seem bothered by the revelation, but just 3 days after the taping, Jonathan ended the life of Scott before turning himself to the police. The reason why he committed this crime was because he was embarrassed and was found guilty of 2nd degree and served 22 years in prison. Although this episode never aired, there was a legal battle between the program and Scott's family, and the jury agreed the show was negligent and ordered the producers to pay $5 million for the pain and suffering and $20 million for the loss and $6,500 for funeral expenses. For our number 1 spot, we have Howard Stern. Although he mainly had a radio show, he's still talking in and it's a show, so I'm gonna just classify that as a talk show. While in recent years, his clips have gone viral on TikTok because of the pattern he has when it comes to making offensive comments towards female show guests, which included Anna Nicole Smith, Lisa Marie Presley, Mariah Carey, and Sofia Vergara, just to name a few. He often makes conversations with these women by objectifying them and speaking about their bodies. In one clip with Sofia Vergara, he tells her that breastfeeding her son must have been unbelievable, which if you didn't know, she was 19 when she had her son. He was also body shaming Anna Nicole Smith, as he suggested she must not be aware of her weight because of the style of her dress, and even asked her to get on a scale after he mentioned how he wanted to guess her weight. And in 1995, following the passing of 23-year-old singer Selena, he spoke about her music by stating, "This music does absolutely nothing for me. Alvin and the Chipmunks have more soul. Spanish people have the worst taste in music. They have no depth," before mocking fans who publicly mourned her passing. He also mentioned a very tragic incident that occurred in high school in 1999 and questioned why the attackers didn't SA their female classmates before taking their own lives. There is just so much more he has to say, mainly about women, that is way too much for this video alone, including gross comments he made about the character and Jemima. So dive into the rabbit hole if you wish. We have made it to the end of today's video. Is there anyone on this list that stands out to you? I would love to hear all your opinions down below if you made it this far. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.